Hey everybody, Steve here on the 100th anniversary of the mysterious unsolved murder and cover-up of the famous Hollywood silent film actor and director William Desmond Taylor. 100 years later, this is still one of Hollywood's most talked about and most written about cold cases. On February 2nd, 1922, the body of 49-year-old silent film director William Desmond Taylor, the director of nearly 60 popular silent films, was found shot to death inside his bungalow apartment in a neighborhood called Westlake Park, which is located between the city of Hollywood and downtown Los Angeles, just a block north of the famous MacArthur Park. The apartment building was bulldozed in the 1950s and is now the parking lot for a Ross clothing store. The police were called, but when they arrived, they discovered dozens of Taylor's friends and associates and neighbors going through his things, taking and removing items and evidence, and either wittingly or unwittingly tampering with the crime scene. Reportedly, Charles Eaton, the general manager of Paramount Pictures at the time, was also there seen removing personal files, documents, and letters that were never seen again. There had been a number of recent Hollywood scandals and deaths, and the studios were suffering financially as a result of all the bad publicity, so the last thing they wanted was another scandal and another PR nightmare. One of the most recent was the very high-profile Fatty Arbuckle rape and murder case. So at the time it was reported that they played a major role in the cover-up of this murder. But of course that backfired and turned it into an even bigger scandal, and a mystery murder that's still alive and well 100 years later. After the investigation, it was determined that he had been shot and killed the night before. He was still wearing a valuable diamond ring, and his wallet full of money was still on his person, so a robbery didn't seem to be the motive. One of the most ironic things about this cold case murder mystery is that there was no shortage of suspects and motives. Investigators today would probably consider this a dream case, with so many suspects and motives. But 100 years ago, it appears that it was much easier to cover up a crime and get away with murder. One of the biggest Hollywood stars at the time was Mabel Normand, and she was also a prime suspect for a while, but younger actress Mary Miles Minter became an even bigger suspect. Apparently, it was discovered that she had developed a crush on and was in love with Taylor, who was 30 years her senior. But many believe that it was Minter's mother, Charlotte Shelby, who was also her daughter's manager, and who incorrectly believed that they were in a relationship together and felt that it would ruin her daughter's career, that she was the one who actually pulled the trigger. Years later, there was even a deathbed confession from another actress, but no one was ever able to substantiate that claim. Taylor's birth name was William Cunningham Dean Tanner, and after he deserted his wife and child back in 1908 in New York City, he changed his name to William Desmond Taylor and moved to San Francisco, California. And then, still later, he moved down to Hollywood. Whether he changed his identity and his name to avoid being found by his wife, or because he thought it would make a better stage name, I wasn't able to determine. One thing's for sure, though, this man who met with a mysterious death also lived a very mysterious and secret life. Or maybe not so secret. He was murdered during the crazy years of the Roaring '20s, which came to symbolize many things, including a much more sexually liberated society for both men and women. And I'm not sure if he was completely out of the closet at the time, but it's been widely reported that he was either gay or bisexual. In this Los Angeles Times article, they state Taylor was homosexual, Paramount executives already skittish because of Fatty Arbuckle's rape scandal sought to cover up Taylor's orientation by feeding false information to the press. And the caption on this website photo reads, "Director William Desmond Taylor at right, with his longtime gay partner, art director George James Hopkins and Mary McAvoy." Hopkins lived to be 88 years old, dying on February 11, 1985, and during his very impressive career in Hollywood, he won the Academy Award 4 times for set decoration for the films Streetcar Named Desire, My Fair Lady, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and Hello, Dolly. He also wrote a book about Taylor, but the manuscript was never published. And before I forget, I want to thank my subscriber, Chris Last Name, who left me a comment a month or so ago to remind me that the 100th anniversary of Taylor's death was coming up soon. And a few other subscribers, McKay, Curtis Robinson, Nothing to See Here, and Ben Blanchard, also left me comments in the past about Taylor, suggesting that I visit his gravesite or reminding me about his death. So thank you all for reminding me that I had actually visited his final resting place here in the Cathedral Mausoluem at Hollywood Forever Cemetery about 3 or 4 years ago, and decided not to share it at that time because so many other YouTubers had already visited his gravesite and told his story. But since this is the 100th anniversary of his death, and people all over the world are still talking about him, I decided to go ahead and share his story, just in case there are some of you out there who haven't already heard it. And who knows, maybe by keeping his story alive, one day a miracle will happen, and we'll finally find out who killed William Desmond Taylor, and why. This week I also want to give a shout out and a very big thank you to my newest Patreon supporter, Vanessa Hinton. Thank you, Vanessa, for your extra generous donation to my channel. It means a lot. Until our next trip to the cemetery together, thank you for joining me on another road trip to the past and for sharing the memories.